from Mauritius, followed by Marta Hussens from Belgium. So yeah, you can see it's a proper global mix that we have. Patapova we are riding with at the moment. Just to give you an update on some of our checkpoints. Timing, it is Frolova that has set the benchmark at the first timing point. She's been through there in a 19:10, same time actually as Nerere, so they are actually tied. Not quite sure because it's actually gone to the thousandths, that those two timings, so I'm imagining that possibly one of them is gone faster than the other. But for the time being, at least, Frolova and Nerere are issued with at the exact same time of 19:10.77. Not quite sure that that is even possible, to be honest. But anyway, they'll get separated a little bit later on, as they're riding with the same transponder. You just don't know. Tango is a further 18 seconds down, and then it really does fall away. Kiplagat trailing by 3 minutes at the first timing point, and you're going to see some very big gaps. They will start to compress a little bit later on, so don't worry too much about that. This is going to be a well fought for course, and as you can see, Nerere is actually coming to the second checkpoint. In fact, she has been through it at a 32.33. Watango nearest to her, but giving away 47 seconds as it stands at the moment. So half an hour into the run, 39 minutes in fact for Nerere. We did say that don't be surprised if we start to see some riders nudging up to the 45-minute plus marker. But we'll get our first benchmark. I think some quick times today will be able to give you a better assessment of what we're expecting once we get the opening times through. A little bit of a hint there of the rainbow bands, as you can see, but only in reflection at the moment, as we have our start house here at the BK Arena. And next off is Sigrid Uterhus Ukset of Norway. Gosh, we've actually nudged up towards the Arctic Circle. We're back down, indeed, probably the longest trip actually. We're now back down all the way here at the tropics, the equator almost, essentially. She comes from Burkak, and that is nudging up towards the Arctic Circle. That's a change of environment.
For sure, and we're starting to get into the part of today's field of starters in this race. We're getting some really familiar names that we've seen plenty of action throughout the Women's World Tour season this year. And going back to a rider you mentioned a moment ago, Anna van der Breggen, she will be going off in a few riders' time, just actually after Tennille Campbell, who I'm excited also to see back in this field today. But yeah, we're going to start to see some names that could be pretty big contenders for getting a firm seat in that hot seat.
Well, just look at this. By the way, that, I believe, is the central market. It is. It's the Kimaronko market. Now, not only for you, is it lively, and as you can hear, fantastic. Do you know what you can get here? Batik shirts. I know. I'll show you my one later. Yeah, it is spectacular. I actually once went to a market such as this. It was actually in Timbuktu, and I said, I want the full costume, please, because they actually made them by hand. Here we are. There we are. These amazing. So full costume, please. They said none of them are for sale. I said, what do you mean? He said they're commissioned by families. you can only have them if I said, what's the lead-in time? He said 6 years. And then one of the guys comes and he says, there is one actually. We haven't seen the family for 10 years. And so we think we can let it go. And anyway, if you ever want a fancy dress party, I've got the kit. Welcome the king. Anyway. Right now, we are dealing with, I've been around a bit. We are dealing with, from Mauritius, this is going to be very effective. Love the kit, I've got to say. So, it is Aurelie Alwax, reigning time trial champion from the African Games. That is proper. So we, as you can hear, we are getting rather excited. And even the start. Look at this, taking every single one of those curves. With exactly the right apex. You know, experience brings you an awful lot, but the line without having to overcorrect is actually a big thing. You can essentially, you shorten distance by taking the absolute correct. But getting that and mastering it at pace is a difficult task.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to the point we were talking about before in terms of doing recons, but then racing at this level and doing it with the pressure in front of the crowds, with the conditions on the day, with so many unknowns against the best riders in the world. It's another thing to get that right. And yeah, it goes back to the fact that we have seen people get it wrong at the highest level, going for the top 3 podium places.
Check this out. Cobbles, you're kidding me. This late on? No, we're not. It is a proper test late on. Now just start looking at elbows, wrists, and you'll kind of see what the impact is. That's essentially the body's shock absorbers. And this is not a pleasant environment to be in. It's great for us. 1.3 kilometers, 6.3%. So not only cobbles, but a climb as well. You're going to know you have been under pressure. Look at that, 11% as a maximum, 6.3 average over the 1,300 meters. And the most difficult part, and you can see it the way the buildings are indented into the side of the road here. What a tough way to finish.
This is such an interesting course, and we talked about it earlier on in the program, didn't we? But now we are seeing the reality of it. You can see what this is taking, the toll it is putting through the body for Nerero here. And yeah, as you say, this is over 6% average, which we're really seeing now. It's heightening up to 11%, the Côte de Kimihurura, and it's cobbled. You know, it's not just the gradient. You can't just look on paper at the elevation gain today. It's cobbles, it's an ascent, it's dead turns, and we're seeing it all at play now.
Absolutely magnificent. And it goes on. This is Housens. Well, they're coming thick and fast. Marta Housens off the ramp and starts course, and as you can see, fully dialed in right from the very beginning. I'm not saying that there's any disrespect to anyone who has already started. It's just that right now you're starting to approach near specialists, and then we will have very much specialists coming on a little bit later on. Nireri is doing a fantastic job. This is the biggest day of her cycling career, dare I say it. It doesn't matter what you've done before. If you're representing your nation at your home world championships for the first time in Africa, this is magnificent.
It's huge for Nireri in every sense of it, and we're just keeping an eagle eye on this road surface, aren't we? I'm sure she is just desperate to get to the end of this cobbled section now. But she's the national TT champion, isn't she? And she is first off the ramp for Rwanda today at this level of World Championships. It just couldn't mean more to her. And we saw a smile, for anyone that might have missed that in the coverage earlier. We saw a smile on that start ramp, an acceptance, an acknowledgement of every bit of support and tension and magnitude that was there for this rider. And yeah, she's within the last 2K now.
Paladin dominating the opening intermediate, as you can see, for Italy. That really is almost a turnaround, I think you might say. We're seeing a gap of about 40 seconds for Paladin, 37 seconds, I beg your pardon, over Frolova. Nireri, though, she did a phenomenal job at that point. I'm still suspicious about exactly the same time between with Ferreira and Nireri, but we'll have a real time at the end. And Nireri is about to just crest this. She's only 1,500 meters away from the finish, but look at this grind. The cobbles haven't stopped.
And we're just seeing how long this section is. And again, I think, you know, we can all, the riders, team managers, we can look on paper, but until you've done the full recon, until you've done race day, you know, this is a long section to contend with. And people would have looked at so many technical elements today in terms of their setup. Tyre pressure is going to be something people are looking at for this segment. And the setup, how often can you stay in the skis in the full TT position? And you can see Nireri here just contending with these cobbles and on the lower setup of the bars.
Well, we did say between 45 and 50 minutes for some of the riders here, and this is going to be a decent time actually by Nireri. But I'm actually looking at the shock waves which are going through her body at the moment. She is not relenting at all. She's still got 1,200 meters to go. This does ease up a little bit. She'll get back to regular asphalt in a few moments' time. But I actually fear of some of the cobbles here. I'm not quite sure how well used this road is. If it's newer, it's worse because some of the cobbles will be sharper on the sides. Can you imagine the heartbreak of getting a puncture late on some of that surface? Finally, she sees the Flamme Rouge, and her day is about to draw to a close. And we will offer up our own applause for what has been a fantastic run for her. Into the barrier section right now, a couple of curves to take, and then she will draw her run at this opening elite women's time trial to a close. And I've got to say, chapeau to her.
Chapeau, she's done a brilliant ride. She's back into that TT position. She's back on smooth tarmac off of that cobbled segment. And she's got 600, well, she's coming up to 500 metres to go here. And this is a big moment. And what a ride she's put in today. Look how smooth this is coming in.
Do you know what? I am proud of her and what she has produced today. This has been as brave as you like. And it is a very good time as well. This is our first benchmark. We said 50 minutes. Can she bust it? That would be lovely. She's on a 49.8 now. Just watch that clock. She'll be heading to the line. Slightly indented on the right foot. Nothing wrong with that. I have slightly indented left foot. You know, I find it comfortable. She has been through hell, however, to get to this point. Nereri about to stop the clock. It will be the first time on this first elite race of these World Championships, the first time in Africa. Can she beat 50 minutes? That's what we want. Just coming up to the crest right now. We've got a foreshortening camera here. It's a grind to the line. Come on, Nereri. This is brilliant. Bring it home. Do it for Africa. And most importantly, do it for this magnificent nation of Rwanda. They're all filming her. We're cheering her on. About the last 100 meters, it's going to be just outside the 50-minute mark, but what a proud moment for her. A great day for Africa and a spectacular moment as well for all fans of cycling globally. 50.07. That was impressive.
What a moment for Nereri, and this rider will now go into the hot seat. She started off all smiles, looking quite measured and relaxed, but then gritted teeth all the way to the line there. This is huge for her, for Rwanda, for everybody watching today. Let's just see the reaction. First rider off into that hot seat now.
Average pace today, 37.3 kilometres per hour. She produced a 50.0767. That is the target time. We're having a workout what we thought the average pace would be today and what sort of time we might get at the distance. I think the first thing we said was 50 minutes. And then we thought maybe 45. Let us wait and see. And I think a lot of the field are going to be in there, aren't they?
Yeah, we are getting, we come in, don't we, to every race, so we want all the answers, we're going to predict it, how's it going to play out? But do you know what answer I think I've just taken from that is that I think we, and maybe some of the riders, underestimated that final segment, because actually it's even for us that here in comfortable chairs, that felt like a long drag through that cobbled part of the race. And even when it smoothed out and she was coming into the closing meters, that was a big slog. That was a big effort, and we've marked how brilliant that ride was. But it took some doing to really measure that to the line. And I think that's in part been underestimated perhaps about today's course.
That final crest, I mean, it is hellish. The grind to get over the line. The only respite you get appears to be in the last 50 metres. She practically fell over the line there.
Oh, my goodness. And yeah, it was really interesting to see, again, predictions on how much the riders would be able to hold position. And she was certainly out of that, wasn't she, to just make sure that she could just maintain as much smooth power as possible across that cobbled section. There's Marta Goossens here. And we talked about a discrepancy happening through the field today. Look how smooth she is in the TT position.
Isn't this an absolutely beautiful building? It's actually based on a beehive, and it's just absolutely spectacular. It fits the landscape perfectly. Whoever was the architect, then we take our hats off to you. That is amazing. Yao Zhang has set the benchmark at the first split, by the way, and it is a strong one through that first timing point. 34 seconds better than the she has 1 minute and 12 over Nereri, who has already finished. So, yeah, we are starting to see some big trims of, indeed, times throughout there. And Yao Zhang, who looked very purposeful, I think we described her for the first couple of corners that the Chinese athlete took. She was fully dialed in, quite clearly.
Yeah, completely. And you can start to see the people that have had the support around them to put in the work it takes to be in this position. And I think it's one thing doing some amount of testing, getting your position dialed but actually being able to secure the best time possible in this duration of a time trial, you have got to find that balance, haven't you? You know, you can't be in a super extreme position that ends up being detrimental and that you can't the full power out. So as we go up the field here, you're starting to see riders that are so familiar with doing TT drills, with being in that testing position, and they've got it honed, and it's so evident. And you could see there with Marta Goossens just how well drilled she is.
It's going to be interesting, that final test, actually, and how much it starts to impact. I think there'll be a few riders that will be thinking about climbing off just at the very last. You can't do it. It's the last bit. You have to get there. There is a bit of a roller coaster. You come off up over the cobble section. You actually go into a little dish and indeed finish on an uphill lip before that very, very, very late little bit of respite. Here's Tanya Campbell from Trinidad and Tobago. They've produced some spectacular track riders in the past of Trinidad and Tobago, and I always love watching them. I
love Tanya Campbell. She is an absolute joy to interview, a joy for our sport. Here she is now taking to that start ramp, and she will be so focused today. She is another rider that has not only impressed as an individual, but it's transcended that. She has done so much for the cycling community in Trinidad and Tobago, coming into the World Tour, representing, having so many injuries, setbacks, luck, missing out on big targets, and she's always just had her heart on her sleeve and said what it means to just represent at this level. And I love her. I think she's brilliant. What a role model.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, why not? If World Championships can come here to Africa, and we've seen, of course, Asia starting to rise as a powerhouse, and, you know, why not the West Indies? That would be just fantastic. Can you imagine Trinidad and Tobago? I'm putting the bid in right now.
Here she is, Anna van der Breggen. I am very excited, as you can tell by the buzz in my voice. I cannot wait to see her out there today. We know how well she can time trial. But for me, this season has just delighted in terms of cycling fans getting treated to so many new narratives. When I saw, I don't think it was even speculation. I think there was a sudden announcement. Anna is coming back to the World Tour peloton, having been a DS. And I was like, hang on, please tell me this is true. Because it was so exciting to have the news that she was going to come back in, and the level she's come back in at, having been away from professional racing, is just so staggering. And this is her discipline.
Yep,
so I'm excited. And yeah,
former world champion, of course.
Back with Soraya Paladin for now. I'll park my excitement about Anna for a moment, but we'll get to that. But Soraya Paladin crashed out of the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift with a broken collarbone, and then she's back to this peak performance today. So it's really worth noting where she's had to come from in preparation. But here's Anna van der Breggen.
Well, we've seen her on the track, we've seen her on the road. We have seen her just about everywhere. Twice a world road race champion, let's remind ourselves. When you look at the roster, Flanders, she won Strade Bianche, Amstel Gold Race. I mean, it's actually easier to say things that she hasn't won. Well, she's won our hearts as well. 35 years of age now. She has moved around the world of cycling, let's put it that way, but she has come back to, well, a moment right now which could prove for this veteran, she's 35 years of age now, something amazing. Let's see how she goes, shall we?
I'm really, really excited to see how she goes today. It's
almost in a sense that she's got nothing to prove, and because of that, she'll do something spectacular.
Yeah, and just if you just watch exactly that, if you just watch her level of expertise, she is textbook when it comes to riding a time trial. We've seen her win so big in Grand Tours, stage races, where she's been able to solo to victory, and she's one of those riders where you think, okay, maybe she's forcing a break here. Okay, no, she's gone solo. Oh, she's gone very early. Okay, she's still solo like 50 kilometres later. She is a rider that can do this and can deliver solo, and so she's immensely exciting to watch in her technicality, the years of experience she brings today.
Well, 5 medals in the time trial, let's not forget, for Van der Breggen, but also the title. That was in Imola in 2020. So, you know, I think she's a couple of times she's been national champion as well in the discipline. So why not today? Can you imagine the story? What a story would that be?
She's won it all, and
if she medals again, that would just be
and
amazing.
the story will be spectacular because of, as I say, the narrative coming into this season with people saying, well, let's just watch what she is capable of doing, because we all know that not having the race days in your legs, it impacts even the best riders in the world. Of course it does. She was a director sportive very successfully for Team SD Works Pro Time for a number of years before deciding to come back to racing. You've got to assume a big part of that was knowing that the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift is now on the calendar. It's now possible to field that for the women's peloton, which has been another huge pivotal moment for our sport, a big talking point. But she is back, and she's not just back, she is back at the very top end, so that'll be immensely exciting. But here we go, another big name today.
Niewiadoma off the ramp for Poland, a nation that always punches above its weight, be that on the track and particularly when it matters. You get to pivotal moments. Be that, as I say, something like the Olympics or indeed these World Championships. And Poland always seem to be able to punch above expectations. Niewiadoma, though, is somebody we expect a lot from. And I guess in a mixed course, she might be able to surprise even more. We talk about time trials, pure time trialists, and you talk about those who are more adaptable, perhaps. I think that's why Van der Breggen, we're expecting a lot from her as we just ride here with Soraya Paladin, who is absolutely eating up the opposition out there. She is finding riders left, right and centre. She is dominating the time checks at the moment. She is the fastest by a margin of 48 seconds at the second split. Zheng coming through here as well. So we are starting to see some spectacular performances throughout the entire run. And Paladin leading and comfortable. What about Van der Breggen? Classical time trialling. She has a little bit of lateral movement, but it's where she feels comfortable. And sometimes finding that comfort on a bike is more important than aero purity. I've seen a lot of riders actually go into tunnels and they've been put into the perfect position.
Yeah.
And because they're uncomfortable, they actually generate less power and are less effective, bizarrely. You have to find some comfort.
Completely, and I think a really prime example of that is when we saw the peak of the battle between Anna van der Breggen and Annemiek van Vleuten. Everybody used to talk about their positioning on the bike because you could look at Anna, her face, her demeanour, her body language. She always looked so calm. Annemiek would have a much more animated style, look like she was throwing it around, and then you'd never be able to tell who was going to take it out of the two of them because their stance on a bike was so different, but they were both able to win Grand Tours, go solo, do the big mountains. You know, they had the capability to go head to head in that with two completely different styles. So if you were to say to Annemiek van Vleuten, okay, so try and position yourself more like Anna van der Breggen, well, that wouldn't work for her. And I think it also, well, yes, it wouldn't have gone down well because they were both the best in the world, so you wouldn't need to alter their position. But that's another thing. It's easy for onlookers to say, oh, I think they're slightly toe down or they're heel out, or I would correct that. But if it's working for them, they don't need to correct that. They've done so much testing with the team to see where they need to be, and they've got it drilled, they've got it right, and it works for them.
Frolova, despite sharing the early intermediate split with Nirere, The difference between them at the third checkpoint was 10 seconds, and the fade has continued throughout the run, I'm afraid, which actually all it does is underscore what a spectacular leader we have of this race, probably spurred on by national pride in Nereri. But Frolova, I'm afraid, is going to find herself way down, and that hot seat, which looks very comfy, I must admit. Parker Knoll.
This is our first sighting of the actual hot seat, isn't it, with Nereri in there. You could just see her sort of already, just her hands over her face, because it's such a hard place to be, isn't it? It's a joyful place to go into the hot seat, but you want to stay there for as long as possible, just to state the obvious. And but this just goes to show how important that pacing is today.
And what Nereri did, I mean, she's hiding her smile because she's a modest person and doesn't want to be seen to be celebrating. I guess almost the failure of others. Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be hiding it. No, I take that, and it's really interesting, isn't it, to see the array of emotions when someone has gone into that pole position. They are sat in that hot seat, and we get to see them watching every rider take off around the course. Who is going to beat them? Who's going to better the time? And it is really interesting element of time trials, because sometimes we do see an incredibly strong rider go off early, and then they are there with bated breath for so long. But we have some incredibly fast riders out on the course. Here's Marta Goossens at the moment for Belgium, and just look at the speed. And I have been really trying to squint in at the setup and the gearing of some of these riders to be more recent starters, because we know how much pressure and power can be potentially retained on the descents. So that's going to have been a really big balancing point for teams and riders coming into today, looking at the tech on the bike, looking at the gear ratios, whether they go for one or two at the front, is because not only have you got the gradients, but you could potentially still at the least maintain or gain on some of those power descents.
This is Van der Breggen just coming through at it'll be our initial checkpoint along the way, still with an awful long way to go, but this should be a mighty trim, one can only imagine. Let's wait and see. We've seen some strong performances out there. Shang and Paladin seem to be measuring themselves against each other at the moment, waiting for the third timing checkpoint for both of them. But I think we're going to be starting to nudge down closer towards 45 minutes by the end. At the moment, Nereri has a finish time that was absolutely spectacular, over a minute clear of Frolova. Watango has also finished, nudging up towards the 2-minute mark. Kiplagat coming home 7 minutes and 47 further away from Nereri, which shows you what Nereri has managed to pull out for this course. A course I am absolutely certain she has probably spent an awful lot of time practicing. And there's no shame in that. I imagine.
Absolutely.
I imagine the authorities have given her several runs on closed roads to make sure that she produces a good time. But she's lived to the billing. It's all very well starting off as favourite, but you have to get into that spotlight and accept the burden.
I've just distracted there for a moment because we just had sight of Marta Goossens there, and we were talking about how pivotal aero gains are today and staying in position. And her number has fallen down.
I saw that.
And yeah, that's not. It's not an ideal thing to happen early on when we're talking about everything on the skin suit being perfectly slick. But yes.
May I say something?
Yes, you may.
It might actually help at dissipating the air off the bag. Did you know that they actually the most aero rendering of hair on your legs? Stick with it. is actually to shave the front of your legs and leave the back of your calves hairy. Because of
so you think she's positioned this number
no,
for the aero gain?
I don't think it's deliberate, but I actually think, strangely, it might actually be helping. The odd little watt or two to dissipate, rather like the golf ball effect. You have dimples on a golf ball, and the reason that it flies further than a smooth golf ball is because it traps the air within those little, the small eddy currents form within the ball itself, and so the air that it's going through passes over more air, and so it actually has a less impactful effect. So yes, there is a dissipation factor here, but I'm not saying it's deliberate by any means. You'd probably rather have the number in the right place. Apart from anything else, you can hear it.
It might be a slight distraction, but no, it is a really interesting talking point. Well, it's very interesting for me as an utter tech geek, I must admit. But it is really interesting, and I've been privy to wind tunnel testing, to track testing, where you just constantly alter the smallest factors. And I've just had my jaw to the floor at the difference it makes immediately when you change one tiny factor, like you say. And we've understood more and more, haven't we, about aero gains over the years. We've had some really key riders just pushing forward the development and the understanding of why it really matters. And we joke about these things, but it could be as simple as one little ridge on a skin suit, something like that.
Amazing.
And I must just throw in my huge tangent that when I was heavily pregnant, I went cycling with one of our lovely colleagues, Matt Stevens, and he then started the talking point that pregnancy bumps make you more aero, because he believes that that is a fact. And then I said, yes, but if I'm more aero, I'm going to say that's going to be outweighed quite literally by the fact that I can barely get on the bike.
yeah, exactly. No, that effect I was telling you about is the reason why javelins, for example, have a sort of a rough surface on the tail. It's exactly the same thing. The problem is, if you only shave the front of your legs and leave the back of your legs hairy, it looks terrible.
I'm not sure it's going to be worth any gains for me to do that, but it is good to know.
Exactly. Anyway, moving on. Apparently, it's also hairy legs make it very painful to receive massage. There you go.
That's the other thing, isn't it?
Yes.
That is the other thing.
Off we go, and they're coming thick and fast right now. This is wonderful. It feels like a big party today, and why not? Our friend from Norway still plying a trade upon the course, and let's just give you some updates, shall we? Zhang is still quickest at the second split, so I'm expecting the Chinese athlete to come through the third split as well. She's a minute and 12 up on Paladin. Is this Patarova coming to the finish now? It is. And we have Zavary Nirere in the hot seat and has not been upset yet. Look at the heat haze we're starting to see generated as well. And as we get to a hotter part of the day, which is just a natural thing, of course, as the sun indeed starts to rise, same as Central European time. So we're just after 11:30 in the morning, local time here. Patapova comes to the line, and they all know how tough this has been, but every single finisher we have just adds to Nerere's kudos as the home favourite, doing an amazing job.
Yeah, so Zavary Nirere, the first off the ramp this morning, we were talking about how she had to measure the effort with the huge support that she's got here, with the fact that the occasion for her was so massive, being the debut rider to go off in the championships. Absolutely huge. Being the Rwandan national TT champion, there were so many things that she had to measure in the way she handled today, and the ride she put in was evidently fantastic. And I think we said, didn't we, it's very hard to tell with the first riders, let alone the first rider off, what we're expecting from the field overall. But she put in such a measured effort. Her position looks so smooth. She got absolutely everything out of this cobbled section towards the last few hundred metres. And yeah, it was job done for her, and she's still sat in that hot seat. It's amazing.
Paladin just catching Benin's Wessu, and indeed Sailing Ryan did the right thing, just got out of the gave a decent gap between the pair. You're not allowed to sit in before 10 metres have been extended. That doesn't look like 10 metres to me, so I'm afraid that the Benin rider just getting a little bit of aero assist, possibly just being warned. Over to the other side of the road goes Paladin. Now don't forget that Shang is also on course. She'll be coming in behind Paladin in a few moments time, but as it is, driving for the line is Paladin. She's already caught her 2.5 minute athlete in Ahuisu. We're staying with Ahuisu right now so that the motorcycle doesn't get involved in a negative way, but now is allowed to move forward by the commissaire. Good work. And so it is that Paladin is in the most difficult part of the course. Now, Paladin was second quickest out the split, but gave away 1 minute and 12 to Zhang, who will be picking up, I presume, fairly soon. Meanwhile, further out on course, this is Van der Breggen, and just look at this first intermediate. The clock's green. She's not that far away from the intermediate, so one can only suspect that this is going to be a mighty trim. We shall wait and see. We've got some great riders out there. I desperately want to get back to Paladin, actually, to see her finish, because I think she is going to take the lead. So relieve Zavarine Nirere of her position in the hot seat. 12.9 kilometre marker is going to be this split, just a little bit of pixelation. You'll forgive us for that. But she's going to bring this one home. We're going to see a lot of chops and changes. This is essentially, I believe, going to be the first one. So it is Soraya Paladin, who has had a road back to recovery, and at least she gets a comfy chair, I imagine, in a few moments' time. Here's Van der Breggen, and there is the Tissot timing, and look at this for a trim. Van der Breggen finds 50 seconds as a trim for the fastest so far, celebrates with a little toot on the bottle, and she now has to finish the job.
She does, but that's something she knows so well, is measuring her effort. I don't think I've ever seen her make mistakes in this scenario about what she expects from a course. And look at the position. She is just so well drilled at perfecting a time trial. I think what was so interesting coming into this season is how she would fare, and she's just delivered. So today's immensely exciting. But here is Soraya Paladin.
It is going to be our benchmark. We suspected that. She's been so strong out on the course. Just out, goes on to the drops, just gets out of the saddle to bring this one home. And thanks to Zavarine Nirere, but she's going to be relieved of that position in a few moments' time. Paladin is going to bring this home. Still quite a way to go. It's a tight camera angle. You can't quite see where she is relative to the finish, but she's into the rainbow stripes hoarded section. And here we go, heads up just to this crest. She's going to come over the top. It's going to be our first sub 50-minute time, and all credit to Paladin. Just at that respite zone right now. It's almost cruelty in action as you watch it. Back out of the saddle, just wants to get the best time possible. You see the line, but actually it just seems to go further and further away from you with every pedal stroke. There is this little dish she has to go into and come out of once again. It's not the most challenging finale in terms of geography here, considering what she's already put in, but stops the clock. And 1 minute and 30 trim. We got a 48.36. That is a very strong time. And thanks to Zavarine Nerere, a great benchmark. But it's Soraya Paladin that takes the lead.
Yeah, tough moment for Nerere there. She'll leave that hot seat, but we just once again must mark what a brilliant benchmark she put in early on today. But Soraya Paladin, just weeks after breaking her collarbone, retiring from the tour, here she is now back in that hot seat.
May not be there for long because minute and 12 they were separated at the third timing point, and Xiao Zhang coming in, always very dialed in terms of the efficacy of their sports programs at China. They do physiological and sometimes psychological testing to make sure that athletes are absolutely cut out of their sport. And Zhang is a fantastic prospect. They have, of course, a wide population to pick from, but Zhang is absolutely at the top of her game, and this is going to be very impressive because Paladin's time was very, very good, and I think we're going to bust the 48 time here. So a 47, let's see what the clock stops at in a few moments' time.
Wow.
Whoa, 47.23. That's a time.
That certainly is, and typical of me, just as I'm talking about who's taking to the hot seat, of course it's going to immediately switch, and that's another heartbreaking point in a time trial, isn't it? Because riders just go to sit down and then they're straight out again, because we're going to see these times now come in thick and fast and just be bettered and bettered.
Yeah, a velvet hot seat? No, plastic stacker. Sorry. It's a tough whole game. That was a fantastic ride by Xiao Zhang. Congratulations to her. Let's see how the splits start to reveal themselves, because I've got to tell you that Norway's Ugset has just taken off Zhang's time, 46 seconds at the third checkpoint. So if she wants a hot seat, she better go and sit on it quick.
I would just as the next rider came in, I'd run over, park myself on it just for a moment to sit there. But yeah, difficult when you're not in it for long, but it is showing us just the class of the riders that we've got out on the course now.
Absolutely wonderful, still in recovery mode, and that is going to be the watchword for quite a few. 10.4 kilometres for Goossens before she finishes her run. Sigrid Ytterhus Ugezed, I think I said that right, is fastest through the third timing point by a margin over Zhang, who's just set our benchmark at the finish. 46 seconds to the good at the third checkpoint. That is enormous.
Talking of enormous time gaps, I think we're going to see a special ride, as we've come to expect from Anna van der Breggen. Eyes on her now, of course. And I know I keep saying it, but you've just got to observe her position on this bike. She is just flawless, isn't she? And you can see the way she has got her head positioned as well. And that little look up and then tuck back into position. And it makes all the difference.
Well, you're starting to see athletes eat into those around them. Marta Goossens just comes by Mauritius, Marigan Legesse, and over to the other side of the road, and absolutely just tracing a golden thread through this tapestry of Gosh, I need to get a T-shirt made with that phrase on it. Van der Breggen tucks in a little bit of shuffle here on the saddle. You see her encroaching the front. Let's see her readjust herself again in a moment. This is one of the things that can actually hamper you as on a time trial run is if you can't stay planted, and it's a difficult thing to mitigate against. We've had gripper saddles in the past. We've had some rather challenging looks, to be honest. Tony Martin once decided that he was going to get his own gripper saddle and decided to glue wet and dry sandpaper on his saddle. Unfortunately, it began to eat through his kit, and then it began to eat through him, and that wasn't a good look. So yes, there was an allowance, and some of the technology is actually built in gripper saddles, and so the what we used to call butt shuffle has actually kind of ebbed a little bit, but occasionally you see riders just struggling to find that comfortable position. It's a mark of how much power they're putting in that they get out of position and then have to readjust. If you're constantly readjusting, it doesn't help.
It doesn't, but if you look at how solid she is now in this position, I think it's all about, I've talked about, you know, surprises on the day, haven't I? And the conditions, you can't utterly predict them down to the finest elements of, you know, exactly what the temperature's going to be, how the exact humidity is going to be the week you competition. But if anybody knows exactly what to expect from herself and the position, but you're right, yeah, there's some shifting around there, but she is very, very used to being in this TT position. She has put hours upon hours and hours and hours, not only throughout her entire career to perfect this, but recently she will have put such a big focus on today as well. We talked earlier about the fact that we've got some really big names absent from the men's field, the women's field, and whether or not they thought they could target a result today. The fact that Anna van der Breggen is fielding this TT means she is well drilled and well prepared to do something special.
That's the voice of Rebecca Charlton, who's joined me, Carlton Kirby, here for the UCI Road World Championships. We're in Kigali, in Rwanda. Well, there's been population here since 8000 BC they've found evidence of. And quite a few things have changed. We're having a bit of a party right now. And that's because this is the first time, of course, that the World Championships have been held here on the African continent. And it won't be the last, because it's been absolutely spectacular. Beautifully organised. And, of course, our thanks to the UCI and Monsieur Lepartillon and, indeed, everybody who have collected together to produce what has been an amazing achievement. And just look at it as well. We have retina fizzing sunshine. It is glorious. There's very little wind. There will be even conditions for absolutely everyone throughout the run. A near perfect time trial, you might say. Well, some time trialists will possibly disagree with you, basically saying this is maybe not for the purists, but that makes it even more entertaining, because the questions that now we have as to who will thrive in this field have widened. We've got classics riders who can actually push the time trial bikes spectacularly so. In fact, it's not the first time that the World Championships, the time trial, has featured altitude, but there's a lot in this course. We've got 460 metres of elevation gain spread over the 31.2 kilometres of the course, which is significant over such a short distance. So there are rises and falls, there's cobble sections as well. It's brilliant.
It's utterly brilliant, and it's even more brilliant because there were elements of the course that we'd all had a look at prior to today, thinking they might not be as taxing as they could be, but they evidently are. That final section is brutal after everything else they've contended with. And with the duration of today that we're looking at, this level of distance for a time trial, and that elevation gain, it is all about not going into the red too early in those early time splits, as we just see Anna van der Breggen there over overtaking Tennille Campbell, who went out ahead of her today, of course, for Trinidad and Tobago. But here we are with Anna van der Breggen, and I keep talking about the importance of pacing, and it's even more important when you're looking at riders taking on the altitude that they are at today, and the things like the air quality, the humidity. If you go into the red on a climb, it's bad. If you go into the red at altitude, with that to contend with as well, recovery becomes all the more difficult each kilometre you go on.
Urska Zigert, Slovenia, in their familiar national green, Slovenian racing green, apparently. There we are. We will, of course, be seeing that in the men's race a little bit later on as well. A certain Mr. Tadej Pogačar, you may have heard of him. He will be going off.
He's not bad.
He's all right, you know. Well, he can push a pedal.
Just about.
Meanwhile, we come back to this spectacular. It's the finish at the convention centre here, and Uxet is going to unseat Bao Zhang, who has only just finished. And, well, we said that some of the best may well be busting the 45. We're not quite there just yet, but we're getting close. This is going to be sub 46, and Xiao Zhang is also rather wonderfully applauding.
Gracious.
That's just lovely to see, isn't it? You know, she's still got the velvet throne as it stands at the moment, but
celebrating there
exactly.
for Sigrid Ytters Haugset coming in here.
How lovely. Line is about to welcome Uxet. She's still got this little rise and fall to deal with. The margin is going to be less than a minute, I think, by the time she reaches the line. But what a performance this is. Just about there. Here we go. She trims 59 seconds for a 46.24. And rather wonderfully, Xiao Zhang applauds her rival for what she has just achieved.
Yeah, she knew, didn't she? She knew she was off on her way out of the hot seat and took a moment to celebrate the time of Sigrid Ytters Haugset here. And yeah, that's a nice moment.
Absolutely wonderful. It's a glorious day, isn't it? It's it reminds me, this road, of the run down from the ridge down to Eyam. Oh yeah, I'm talking Derbyshire. Only because of the greenery, perhaps, but not the weather. And I've got to say, not the food either. They were spectacular here. Some of the cuisine in these parts of the world are absolutely wonderful. So yeah, got a little bit of a piquancy to it as well. If you care to enjoy. Some of the open-air restaurants here are absolutely gorgeous. It's a film festival here as well.
Look at that smile.
How lovely. She's done it. She's finished.
It's well, land of 1,000 hills.
Yeah.
Is where we have
them all today.
Just as I say, look at this setting, land of 1,000 hills, and it's not an easy course.
No, it's not. After which, cup of tea. Why not? These are the tea plantations, and rather beautiful they are as well. In fact, some of the black tea that you enjoy does indeed come from Africa. You talk about all the tea in China, Indian tea as well. Africa produces some amazing teas, and I've got to tell you that here in Rwanda, they're particularly proud of their brew. We'll be having one a little bit later. Meanwhile, this is Sigrid is our leader for the time being. I do fancy a cup of tea, actually, but anyway.
This is what I'm interested to see, Carlton, is how much Anna van der Breggen keeps the pressure on down the descents. And I was thinking she's going to start pedalling some of these downwards roads, and that is evidently the amount of power that this rider is able to get out of each part of this course. And we know how fast these descents are, but gearing again has been such a consideration coming into today to get over the ramps, but to really maximise what what you can do. Because when you're looking at those top 3 places today, the medal contention places, that is going to mean everything in terms of how much power they can keep carrying, of course, at every point of today.
You know what? In any kind of speed event, and I remember talking to the great Terry Reimer, it was an endurance motorcyclist, 24-hour motorcycle racing. I said, how is it you're so dominant? And he said, by making the easy bits hard. And I just thought that is absolutely right, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that from Anna van der Breggen. Easy bit, don't take a break. This is where you can make a difference, because if everyone else is taking a break, power through, make the easy bit hard, and you're going to do something spectacular.
Exactly that, and we know in this sport that's what it takes, that's what it comes down to. Did you manage to carry a little bit of power through a section that somebody else didn't? That could win it. Here's Niewiadoma.
Make the easy bit hard. Listen to
Love
Terry.
that. It's so true.
Here we go, Niewiadoma, and that's a big giveaway, I'm afraid. A minute and a half down at this point. That's a surprise.
It is a surprise. Kasia Niewiadoma, we know her class, we know her all-round ability as well, that she can really succeed in different disciplines, but looking to suffer there.
Look at that, the way that curve was and how quickly she was not fearful about grounding a pedal. That is knowing your machine apart from anything else, knowing your lean angles, knowing when you can get the power on as you come out of a corner without actually getting yourself destabilized and into trouble. She kept that so smooth. This is wisdom.
It is wisdom, and that's what she brings to our sport, and that's why I'm so delighted she is back in the fold of the World Tour peloton at the very top end of it. And I think, going back to my point before, when she announced that she'd come back, there were big question marks over whether you can be out of the sport. We know she would have kept training, of course, she evidently did, but whether or not you translate that into race success is another thing. And she came into the Spring Classics and did exactly that. And I think we then had such high expectations of her all season and just went back into thinking of her as an out-and-out favourite, forgetting that she's been away from this sport. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to get some more answers today. But here's Anna Kiesenhofer, who many people will, of course, remember from her win at the Olympic Games in Tokyo, where she just, well, she made a staggering move and secured victory, and I think surprised herself, although perhaps not, because I think she was well aware of her capabilities. But she's had a really interesting journey in this sport, coming out of the pro team fold for 2025 and actually taking on a coaching role in Team Picnic Postanel and the team staff behind the scenes. But she's completely decided, right, I'm going to focus in on the World Championships today and the time trial.
Gosh, this looks like a challenging start, I must say, for Rusa. Hope she's okay. I mean, to me, Rusa is potentially our favourite for today. So Marlon gets herself ready and underway. This is going to be very, very special. Reigning Swiss time trial champion. Swiss time, of course. Swiss time is running out. Famous line. Which song was that? Smoke on the Water, of course. Deep Purple. We know that.
I didn't.
Deep into the red. Hoosens, and I'm afraid, 47.53. Should be a little disappointed with that, I'm afraid. We'll get back to Marlon Rusa in a few moments. Time. 3 medals, 2 silvers and a bronze she's had, of course, in the Worlds, but last year suffered a bit of burnout is a shame. Self-declared, I've got to say. But yes, she is, when it comes to time trialling, absolutely spectacular. Forced to abandon Tour de France Femmes in July due to illness, which is something that you have to retrieve to bounce back from. And in fact, everyone's going to get bad luck in their career, and illness, I think, is one of the most unlucky things, because it's got nothing to do with form. It's got nothing to do with kind of injury, really, and your recovery rates, or indeed your dedication. You can't mitigate against getting ill, and it happens to everybody. But you've got to get back from it, haven't you?
It's really hard. It's really hard because I think there's been so many big narratives that played into how good this season's been, and I genuinely believe that this, for me, is the best season of women's cycling we have ever had. It has just been spectacular.
That's because you've been commentating it, obviously.
No. God. And I think, and we've got eyes on Kiesenhofer here. It'll be really interesting to see what she can do today. And but back to your point there on Marlon Moisser, there was a lot of illness going around, stomach bugs, sickness, and we know that can spread. Only throughout a team, you're all sharing rooms, you're at a Grand Tour together, but it can transcend that and go for the entire peloton. And we saw so many people with huge targets of coming in spectacular form to the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift being immediately taken out with illness. Of course, most prominently being Marlon Royce to fall victim of that illness. And she was quite open, as she normally is in interviews, which I love because she's so candid. But she was saying, yeah, I'm just too unwell to even consider being at my peak, and we saw that very early on, forcing her to retire. There's Brodie Chapman of Australia starting, another person that we always talk about in a time trial, because as you'll see, she is able to push it to the limit.
Well, in Oz, everyone, of course, is a time trialist, because it's how you start your game, really. Race against the clock, point to points, out and backs, as they're sometimes called, so out into the outback and then back again. So yeah, defending national champion is Brodie Chapman, and you don't wear the green and gold for nothing. She is absolutely fabulous. We love the Aussies and the way that they absolutely are so attack-minded. A sporting-based nation Australia can describe itself quite honourably. For the population they have, the champions that they produce is off the scale.
It is such an exciting part of the world, isn't it? Especially in time trials. Let's just go when we finished here. But no, I think for me, what has really stood out, I guess this season, but always with Brodie Chapman, is the ability she has to be such a workhorse for her trade team. She has been a super domestique, but she's also then, when it transfers back to being her as an individual, she delivers. And I don't think that's an easy balance, because we know the psychology of being a domestique, working for others. You do completely transfer your mindset and how you perform that role. So to then put full focus back into yourself to delivering on the day, yeah, that takes a lot of skill. And Brodie Chapman brings so much experience to that, and she'll be great out there today.
Yeah, I mean, she's quite remarkable, to be honest. The sort of list of success that she's had, considering the knockbacks that everyone gets here, and just to maintain it. Third in the time trial at the Giro, second in the time trial at the Turningen Ladies Tour as well. I mean, she's brilliant. So let's see how she goes. Kiesenhofer is on course, the Austrian, to do something great, but she's never afraid to hide her discomfort. Let's put it that way. She was absolutely internally screaming there. Niedermeyer is next. And away she goes. I mean, she is, of course, the national champion. And it was Germany that brought tea, apparently, to Rwanda back in the day. I don't know where they got the tea plants from. They probably nicked them from the Brits, who obviously nicked them from the Chinese and then set up their own plantations in India. I know. I mean, China's had the monopoly on tea, and now it's everywhere, but particularly some of the best of it here in Rwanda. So I've got a cup of tea. But anyway, Kiesenhofer, we're looking at her right now. Van der Breggen with a 35.44 at the third intermediate and 1:53 up. This is rude.
I love your quotes. You know that, Carlton. They're all, I was going to say Twitter bios, X bios now. But in their own right, they stand alone, Carlton. Legendary. 1.5 kilometres remaining for Anna van der Breggen. We're seeing her navigate these cobbles now. Be interesting to look at her position on the bike, which I've talked about so much today. But back with Kiesenhofer here, and as you mentioned before, there are certain riders, actually Anna van der Breggen, very good at it, at just concealing any evidence of pain on their face. But Kiesenhofer is very much heart on sleeve. This is the amount of effort I'm pouring into this. She played down her chances coming into today, saying she didn't have the ideal preparation, but she's another rider that always focuses on a target, evidently because she won the Olympic Games that way.
That Kivu, absolutely beautiful. It's almost like an inland sea, this. It's a landlocked nation, of course, Rwanda. But at one side of this great lake, you almost can't see the other side of it. It's absolutely beautiful and well worth a visit. Back to the BK Arena. Labous is about to engage, and we've got the very best now. This is where it starts to get properly serious. Juliette Labous was actually beaten by Cédrine Gall, who we've already seen on course, but Juliette Labous, again, another one of the very, very strong time trialists from a very strong nation when it comes to this discipline, France. And away she goes. Her left eardrum will have a ringing sound in it by the time she leaves the arena here, because that's the side the drummers are upon. Away she goes, and that time tunnel rear disc. See what she can do, shall we? Anna Henderson will be next, then Chloe Dygert, and then, of course, Demi Vonlering to draw the start house to a close and give the drummers a break. Meanwhile, everyone's going to be saying, oh, give us a break. Van der Breggen is absolutely in charge. This will be meddling significance. Let's wait and see. Sigrid is having a look. She's got a big grin, shaking her head.
She's like, that's okay.
Just sheer appreciation. I don't mind being beaten by Van der Breggen. How lovely is this?
If you're going to be beaten by someone, you would just accept it, wouldn't you? If it was Van der Breggen coming in to take your time and better it. You can see the look on Sigrid Ytterhauset's face there. Yeah, okay. She's the best in the biz. But she's only just come out of that position in this push to the line. She's been so neat all day on every kilometre of this course. She knows how important it's going to be to get absolutely every inch of power and leave it all out on the road. And she's a rider that so well knows how to do that. Look at this coming into the line here and back down in TT position.
Every single pedal stroke matters. Make the easy bits hard. Don't finish at the line. Think about finishing beyond it, and it's beyond even her expectations. That is a powerhouse performance of exceptional quality and delivery. Wow, we have a heck of a winner here, at least for the time being. Let us wait and see how long this can last, but at the finish line, we're in the 44s, for goodness sake. The trim is 2 minutes and 23 at the finish with a 44.01, and she has broken into the 42s as an average, a 42.5 average pace throughout that punishing course. Underscores Anna van der Breggen's sheer greatness.
Talked about textbook displays of dominance from Anna van der Breggen. Look at the damage she's done there. That was just a joy to watch, and she was so calm, as we've come to expect from this rider, so measured in her effort. Nothing is left to chance. But here's Anna Henderson for Great Britain.
She's off and underway, and Anna Henderson has now got a big task on her hands, possibly career-defining. Let's wait and see. She hasn't yet moved on to a podium as far as the world is concerned. That will be her target, to get a medal. Let's hope that that indeed happens to her, because you know what? It's not beyond the realms of possibilities, and this rider on your screen now proves that. If you have belief, it counts for a massive percentage of what you can deliver.
It completely does, and psychology, as we know, is so important. But I think teams are placing so much more importance on understanding the mental approach to coming into these races and how well you deal with pressure. Can, of course, massively affect your result on the day. Anna Henderson does deliver when it matters, doesn't she? Yeah. She has really proven that in her career. Albeit she's still such a young rider, achieving such big things in her list of achievements so far in this sport. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what she does today. She's another rider that's had to come back from so many setbacks, from injuries, and she's got full focus on today. So I think it could be an exciting rider. But we're going to say that, aren't we, for the last few riders, because there is some serious competition out on the road at the moment, and indeed with our last couple of riders to go off that start ramp, they are going to challenge the time of Anna van der Breggen, and one of those people is her teammate Demi Vollering from Dutch Cycling this week, and that will be very interesting to see what Vollering can do. And I think we always say it, don't we? Anything can happen, but it can. We don't wish it on a rider, but we can see mistakes, we can see crashes, we can see people push a turn too much. It'd be very interesting to see who really capitalises on everything today. Talking of which, someone that can do that very well, one of our big favourites, Chloe Dygert.
Chloe Dygert getting ready. Bronze last year, of course. She'd like, by sheer alchemy and force of will, to turn that to gold today. Let us wait and see. She's got Demi Vollering, of course, still to come off the ramp, who was the best placed, and indeed in this last year, and will be wearing number 1. Here we go. So, Great Britain versus the United States versus Netherlands, France, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Well, it has a European whiff to that list of favourites. However, we are racing in Africa, and we thank the people of Rwanda and Kigali. We thank the UCI as well for this amazing event, and it's just so beautifully delivered. And right now, it's a question of just digging in for a little bit of glory. And in fact, why not have a lot of glory? Yes. We're getting ourselves greedy now because the performances are spectacular. That corner looked a bit out of shape here for Kaisenhofer. The dead turn is a difficult thing to master. You've got to get that absolutely bang on, haven't you? Lose a couple of seconds there.
Yeah, and that's what it all comes down to, time and time again. Is balancing it. We've talked about that, haven't we, with the time trial position. There's no point in being in the most aero extreme position if you can't hold it, if you're constantly shifting around. And here we have eyes now on Kasia Niewiadoma of Poland, and it looks like she's suffering out there today.
Certainly has, and we've seen a few grimaces. This is not a grin, this is absolute end of resources, and I'm afraid by the time she crosses the line it's going to be possibly nearer to the 3-minute mark than it is the 2-minute mark here, but no shame in this. Some of the conditions will be better to the liking of some riders than others, but bang in the middle of my prediction there, it is 2.5 minutes, I'm afraid, giving away 2:31 to be precise. But as you've just heard, good enough for third place, which explains some of the big margins that we have had. So yeah, slotting into third place behind Sigrid Udris